wearing the mask is exhausting. So how can I get rid of that? Right. And so that's been an evolution over time, but definitely was not something that I was born with or came up with.
Quick note before we dive in. If you're a woman in healthcare leadership, and especially if you're a woman physician or clinician leader looking for a space that truly gets the challenges that we experience as women leaders in medicine, check out our REMAP cohort. It's 4 months, real community, real skills, and 22 CME credits. Link is in the show notes. Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, and I am so grateful as always to be with you for another episode. I'm very excited for this episode because it's a long time coming with this friend. Friend doesn't even really begin to describe. I'm going to call in Big Brother vibes a little bit here. This person, now you all have been listening to me. You know I have been part of a fellowship or was part of a fellowship in 2025 called the Mosaic Changemakers. And this brother right here was in the fellowship with me. We call ourselves the MOFOs.
That's right.
And I remember the first week that we met, I was like, that guy, he's going to be my friend. And I think that was universal among a couple of us. He was just there. And one of the things I want to share is that I have never felt so looked after, so cared for by a person throughout the year. Just checking, not like helicoptery, but you can always feel the energy of being checked on, being cared for. And so I am just so excited to actually have this person in my life, but also to have this person in the room today with me, Aaronde Creighton. He is the founder and owner of Fourth and Hawthorne. He's a vibe sultan and coach. I just so love that title. And we are here, we talking about going where you're celebrated. And this is and not just tolerated. And it comes from a post. First of all, if I were to say the vibe of Mosaic Changemakers, it was a place where we were celebrated. Yeah. And Aaronde posted this LinkedIn post the other day from the time of this recording that talked about that journey. And so I was like, yeah, this is what we need to talk about today. So Aaronde, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, long time coming. We always have fun. It's always fire when we get together. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we're not going to talk about the spades shenanigans today, but
I think Carol and I still up a little bit, but we're going to leave that one alone.
Ooh, already.
It's all love.
We got a redo coming up.
There you go.
I love for my listeners to kind of get to know my guests. So please introduce yourself in the way that you feel is most authentic to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Introductions are always an evolving thing, right? And so first and foremost, I am a Black, cisgender, neurodiverse individual. I am a husband. I'm a father of two amazing Black women. And the work that I get to do in this world for probably the past 20, 25 years is working with people and organizations. And where I've gotten to more recently is helping people lead from who they are, not from who they think they should be. That's a huge difference. And it folds into the conversation we're having today around going where you're celebrated. I want people to lead from their authentic self because it's exhausting trying to lead from somebody you ain't.
So one of the things you just said something that just hit, which is lead from who you are, not who you think you're supposed to be, or like I can reframe it a whole bunch of ways, not how people think you should be. Right. It hits for me because coming out of residency, I was always, I would say, the self-proclaimed proud weirdo in my class.
Okay.
I was a yogi, I was a Reiki master. I'm like going to traditional medical school, studying traditional Chinese medicine, doing Reiki on people, got crystals. I was that girl in med school. I knew no other way to be. But when I came out of residency, practicing this sort of, we called it alternative medicine back in the day, that was something that was an unknown for most people, for most of my colleagues. And because of that, I was isolated.
Yeah.
And I think I learned at a very early age that I could be no other than myself. But there was a consequence to that, which means I was very isolated in my career for a long time. And so one of the reasons I resonated so much with your post was that you put language to something that I had experienced that I hadn't quite realized
Mm.
that was that. I'd love to hear a little bit about how that evolved for you, like how you evolved into leading from who you are,
Yeah.
everybody else be damned.
But the funny thing, I appreciate hearing your experience, Maiysha, of I was okay being the weird one, right?
Mhm,
For me, it was the opposite, right?
mhm,
And so I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, north side of Richmond. And when I first got ready to start school, the neighborhood that we lived in, foster home on the end of the block. My mom and dad were there, but it wasn't a whole lot of households that had mom and dad there. My
mhm.
mom is a former teacher. And so we had a brand new school going up. And she was like, yeah, nah, this is not going to get it. So I got bussed, right? I literally at 4 going on 5 had this dynamic of you got to be one way when you're home in Highland Park, bust out into the affluent old white area of Richmond 6 years, and I got to be something different out there. And the two didn't mesh. And so what was interesting for me is I couldn't understand as a kid, like just take it at face value. If you said you're gonna be at my house at 4 o'clock and it's 4:05, I'm like, what's going on? When you talk about being okay being the weird kid, for me, I was definitely the weird, different kid, but it was made known early that was not okay. And so what helped me survive was figuring out really quick either what's the rules of the game, or if you don't know the rules of the game, you better make up something real quick so that you can be safe, right? For me, it was really like, how can I blend in
Yes.
and be like everybody else? Those refrains of, I just happen to be a good this who happens to be black, right?
Mhm.
Those were the ways that I was engaging in space for the most part, not
Yeah.
being comfortable with it's okay to be the weird one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little bit different for me. And just through life experiences,
Yeah.
having kids and seeing how they're entering the world, and then realizing this is exhausting.
Yeah.
Wearing the mask is exhausting. So how can I
Yeah.
get rid of that? Right. And so
Yeah.
that's been an evolution over time, but definitely was not something that I was born with or came up with. And the funny thing is, you know, parents have all these little sayings that they give you, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get out your house because this little saying is getting on my last nerve. Right?
Yes, I do know.
The one that my dad, and he had many, but the one that sticks to me that really is a mantra for me is no one can beat you at being you but you, right?
Ooh.
No one can beat you at being you but you. And
Mm.
I used to hate that growing up, right? Because a lot of times it was associated when I would get in trouble with something, they'd be like,
Yeah.
see, told you, nobody could. But as
Right.
I got older, I began to understand and respect it more.
Mhm.
Figure out how can I embrace and make this a true part of who I am. And so that's really what that journey of getting to a place where you're celebrated, not tolerated, comes from.
And as you were sharing your experience as a child, it brought something up for me, which is I think that my self-proclaimed weirdness was a rebellion from childhood because I think I came into that more in my med school days.
Okay.
As a kid growing up in the house of violence, you learn to be invisible. You
Yeah.
learn to go in and just be seen and not heard, which is also what we grew up with, right? Right. And so I do remember I changed schools a lot. It was out when I was young
Mm,
and being a chameleon, being able to get along with everyone and fit in with everyone. Although I don't know that I was as concerned about fitting in as I was concerned about avoiding conflict. And also, I think my family of origin,
yeah.
they put me in this box of who they thought I was. So
Mm,
for me, it was coming from the call was coming from inside the house.
yeah. Yeah.
And part of that rebellion was actually out of kicking out of this box that I kept getting put in.
Yeah.
I resonate with this whole you gotta be this. For me, it was inside the house. You're a girl, you need to be frilly, you need to wear your hair, you need to wear makeup, you need
Yeah.
to act this way, you need to be a debutante. That was not who I was. And so
You as a debutante, just knowing you now, right?
and so when I graduated, I cut my hair. I was like Tony Braxton short. I
Okay.
was like baggy shorts, baggy pants. I was the most boyish, thuggish.
You was left eye. You was trying to be left eye, huh?
I was totally left eye. I was a cross between Tony Braxton and Left Eye, except the haircut, and then I had the baggy pants. Don't go chasing waterfalls. No.
Yes. I love it. Well, I think for me, what's interesting is as I hear you lay that out, it's so interesting, either the patterns that we fall into with our families or the assumptions that we make, right? In my case, I'm the oldest. Just me and my younger sister, 6 years between us. And then I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides. And so there's a lot of assumptions that I took on that of what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do this, right? Yes. And stories that were made up in my head, but I held for so long and I thought they were real. This is how you're supposed to do, or you've got to do this because of sacrifices that family made and this kind of thing. And then you start exploring, and when you get to be an adult and you're like, oh, there was absolutely no truth to that. Like, where did that even come from, right? And for me, one of the things I thought was always interesting is my dad is a retired accountant, a retired CPA. My mom is retired from a lot of different things, but her career path and mine are very similar. She finished working, it was in more consulting and coaching. But my parents never really had so much a expectation of career path for us. It was more around just putting your best foot forward and being successful because we know you have the ability, right? Yeah. As a kid, that spirals into, I'm supposed to be president of the United States. That's a crazy thing as a kid. And you find yourself following those threads, not knowing where they came from. I think that's a lot of the unpacking for me that I had to do to get comfortable with, no, this is your path. This is the direction that you need to be going.
I don't know about you, but it took years. I think that was really the first time that I started to really come into who I was powerfully. Because there was a point where I didn't tell people I was a doctor. I would tell people I was in healthcare because I wanted to be relatable.
Okay.
And so there was still an element of wanting to fit and wanting to be known a certain way, because being a doctor, there was a story I had in my head about being a doctor might make me seem pretentious when that was not who I was.
Yeah.
Coming up in a household where being a young Black girl in a sort of upper middle class household meant I had to be a debutante. I had to be frilly and girly and do all of these things. It was like it mapped onto this whole like, oh, you're a doctor now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would not tell people I was a physician. And then I got called out on it by a mentor.
Okay.
And she was like, why do you never call yourself Dr. Claiborne? And I'd be like, because that's not how I want people to know me. Being a doctor is what I do, not who I am.
Yeah.
And she was like, but wait, though, you went to school for how many years and did all the things? And she made me lay it out, name it out. And so I had to be comfortable with the both and. Yeah. So it's like the first time that I started to, and also I think because of the fact that I did go a different path in medicine and I was isolated for it, I didn't want anything else that would isolate me or that would alienate me from people, right? So I didn't even know that there was a place that I could be celebrated. I didn't even know what that meant until maybe 10 years ago.
I completely hear that. And I think my similar experience and story was a coach that I worked with, Jim Milner out of Milwaukee. Shout out to Jim. Amazing older Black male coach. I was interviewing him to see if I wanted to use him for coaching for myself. And I remember what locked me in was he asked me a question at the end. He said, I want you to sit with this question. He said, are you a great Black coach, or are you a great coach who happens to be Black? And he just got quiet. And I sat there and I realized that I was operating in a way that was more respectability politics of, I'm a great coach who just happens to be Black, not recognizing that my Blackness was something that was typically not going to be in the rooms that I was in. And that's what gave me my unique perspective. And so that was really, I think, the start, that relationship. And I worked with Jim nonstop for probably about 5 or 6 years, really centering around that whole topic, right? Me getting comfortable with, I'm a Black coach, and being in spaces where, you know, you and I are both coaches. A lot of times, what do? We scan the room.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I see my eyes. I give you the nod. If you don't nod back, I'm like, I don't know about this one. I don't know. She might not be kinfolk. I don't know what the deal is, right? But that was a real thing, because we deal with, as Black professionals, regardless of what our profession is, there's some stuff it's like, I don't want to have to explain it.
That's right.
There's one of my wife's favorite shows was This Is Us.
Oh, yeah.
And I love, there's a scene where Sterling K. Brown is talking to this therapist, and he was like, I'm gonna need to switch up. And she's like, why? She's like, I need a Black therapist, because I don't need to be spending money explaining to you what it's like to be Black.
That's right.
And she was a white female. She was like, I get it. That's the side that sometimes we as coaches bring to our clients, where they can come in and just let their shoulders down. Whew, I was in a meeting and I got my hair braided because I'm getting ready to go on vacation.
That's right.
And everybody was looking at me like, oh, your hair grew overnight. And you know, I'm on a roll. I was like, yeah, I know you did. Now, they didn't reach out and try to touch it, did they? It was like, see, right? That's the kind of thing that you got to communicate, right?
1,000%.
And so I think that when we get comfortable with, this is who I am, this is where I lead from, because this is the lived experience that I have, and we don't have to wear that mask, it's not just freeing, but it's like, now I can put that energy someplace else. That's going to be productive. That's going to get results in my life and in the lives of people around us. And to me, that's where the real work is.
And it's so interesting, because as you talk about like being a Black coach, a Black male coach that is a good Black male coach, rather than a good coach that happens to be Black, that this perspective of being a Black woman, when you talk to organizations and, oh, we already have coaches internally, I realized that, do you have coaches that look like me? Because a lot of times inside of organizations, they don't.
Yeah.
And how are your female, your women of color, your Black women leaders, clinicians, physicians being taken care of if they don't feel safe with the coach? How are they going to be completely transparent about what's really going on, so that they can have the deepest level of transformation?
Yeah.
So that just popped in my spirit. I was like, oh yeah, I can totally get that. And that's been a recent journey for me.
And it's so important when you are not represented in whatever environment, it gives you a different level of understanding, a different level of hope. Now, I see somebody that looks like me, right? One of the stories I always like to share is my oldest daughter is an athletic trainer, and she's been on this journey for 10 years of wanting to be a trainer. And it all started because she saw Queen Latifah in Just where Queen Latifah plays this athletic trainer, nursing a basketball player back to full health, right? But because she saw that getting ready to go into high school, that sparked something in her. And so fast forward 10 years later, now she's got her master's, she's a certified and licensed athletic trainer, all because someone as brilliant as Queen Latifah saw an opportunity in a role, cast herself in a light that maybe a lot of other young Black girls never saw.
That's right.
And so to me, the same thing applies when you and I are coaching folks who look like us. And when they see those resumes come across and they're flipping like this, and then they, whoa, wait a minute, let me go back. Oh, okay. I see she got locks. Let me call her first.
Yeah.
And let me have a conversation. And you know how it goes. It usually starts off, they're all nice and, yes, so I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Something pops out where you like, so one thing we don't have to do is when we get together, You ain't got the code switch. Just be you. All of a sudden you see that.
I mitigate that from the start, because when they pop in the room, I'll be like, "Hey," and they're like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, we."
Yeah.
I'll be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right. And this is for you and I. The advantage that we have is when they look through the list, and they don't have no pictures, but they see Maiysha, Aaronde. Oh, wait a minute, he got his full name on there too.
Yeah, Aaronde Creighton.
All right, let's roll, right? And there's value in that, just like there's value in using, whether it's Latino or Asian, something about, I don't have to explain my journey and my challenges, because there's some level of understanding that you have and maybe some similarity of lived experience.
Yes. And talk about going where you're celebrated. When you are entering a room with someone who understands and celebrates your lived experience.
Yeah.
Just in the space of coaching.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, when you already know you're okay, this person, I know that whatever happens, I know I'm celebrated for my lived experience, not just tolerated for my lived experience. Yes.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. I had a coaching session yesterday with a client, and she said, "Hold on a second." And her husband just popped his head. He was like, "I just want to say hi. I appreciate you, bruh." We're community. We're community, right? It's, hey, it's totally cool. It was no problem. And he's just, man, I just appreciate the way that you're partnering with her and working with her. And I'm like, cool, it's all good. It's all good. But when we let down the guard and the facade of, I'm a brilliant coach and I just happen to be Black, or I just happen to be neurodiverse, that's our secret sauce. All of that come forth fully. That's what people get attracted to. Yeah. And I think that sometimes what happens is we're so concerned about who will lose that we don't want to bring that forward. And what I have gotten comfortable with is I'm going to lose the folks that probably, if I'm being real, I should have never had anyway.
Facts.
And they might be some of the folks that, you know how it is. You look at this, I'll be like, I got 2 more sessions.
Yes.
Wrap up this one, right? As opposed to, oh, me and Maiysha going to talk today. I'm gain just as much from that conversation as she's going to gain from talking to me, right? And so that's why I think just us being able to fully embrace, right, is so important. And as we do that, you get folks that want to celebrate. You get folks that are like, hey, look, I got Dr. Maiysha is like it. I'm telling you, if you want to talk to a coach, that's the person. And you start getting the people who are just as reinvigorating for you as you are in terms of being a part of their inner circle as a coach.
1000%. It's so interesting because one of the things I'm hearing is that to be able to recognize the communities in which we are celebrated and to be able to allow ourselves and be attracted to or attract those communities in which we are celebrated, we have to celebrate ourselves.
Absolutely.
All of the accomplishments, all of the quirks, and celebrate those quirks, right? I talked to my son. He said to me one day, he was like, "Mom, do you think I'm weird?" And I'm like thinking to myself, is this a trick question?
Right.
So, because I'm like, I want to say yes, but in the positive way.
Yeah.
So what I said to him was, "Do you want to be weird?"
I love that. Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Then you're the weirdest."
Yeah.
And so we had this whole conversation about leaning into being weird and like, what's normal? Normal's boring. And so we have that joke, that context between us. But I didn't have that growing up. And as you talked about. And so I'm curious about, when's the first time that you were in a community where you really truly felt celebrated? Hey, before we get back to the episode, I want to take a moment to share something close to my heart. 17 years ago, someone saw my leadership before I could see it myself. That experience changed everything for me. And that's exactly why I created the Remap cohort. If you're a woman physician or leader in healthcare who's tired of being talked over, burned out from carrying conversations you don't have language for, or just craving a space where you don't have to explain being the only one in the room, this is for you. Remap is a 4-month cohort, a small, intimate community for women, physicians, and leaders in healthcare, where you'll build real communication skills and community navigate the hard stuff, and yes, earn CME credit in the process. 22 Category 1 AMA CME to be exact. Listen, you deserve a space that pours into you, not one that continues to extract from you. Find out more, reserve your spot, or schedule a discovery call at mindremappingacademy.com. Also, the link is in the show notes.
Ooh, wow, that's a good one. First time I was in a community where I really felt celebrated. I think that the older I got, if I'm being honest, the less I really started paying attention to what I needed or how I needed to show up. And I just kind of fell into the societal expectations. One of the times I will say my best friend in high school who I've had a chance to reconnect with, he's a surgeon in the Durham area. He and I were like so in lockstep in high school. He drove, he had we call it the green machine. He had an old green Monza, not Mazda, Monza. I think it was a Ford Monza, right? 2-door, little hatchback, right? He lived probably maybe a mile away from me. So a lot of times he'd swing by my house, swoop me up. We could ride to school. It wasn't a long ride, like 10 minutes, not talk. But we were just in lockstep, right? Yeah. Summer after we graduated, I think we saw every single movie that was out that summer. And to me, the epitome of our relationship was, I started off school in North Carolina A&T. It's about a 3-hour drive from Richmond. He took me back to school one semester, drove down, dropped me off at my dorm. I'm getting my stuff. I'm going to pack up. And it's like a Saturday. So I'm like, yo, you want to hit a party on campus? Nah, I'm going to head back to Richmond. I'm like, bruh, you just drove 3 hours. We can hang out. If you want to crash in the dorm. No, I'm good. But we had that level of comfort with each other at that time. Yeah. I think that there was probably maybe individuals, but not necessarily holistic communities where I felt that. And then most recently, and not just saying it because you on, but really the MOFOs. Yeah. You know, it's 16 of us. Yep. I use the example of when you had your talk in Asheville, 15 people, 5 of them showed up. Yes. And only one lived in Asheville. So we all rode to support. That's community. It was like, nah, we all gonna try to get there if we can. And then those who weren't was like, I need you to, can y'all illegally record? No, we're not breaking no rules, right? Because what is she talking about? Give us point by point, right? But to me, that's community because we all kind of show up as who we are, what we need to do. And I think that's what we miss a lot of times as we get older. We don't identify what does community really mean, right? Like even when we get together for dinner and your son is there, I'll check in on him on some hoops or something, or video games, and as he does this thing. But it's community, right? Yeah. That's to me what's important, especially as we're getting older. Because this is double nickels for me this year. I'll be 55. I'm looking at, where can I be me and I don't have to feel exhausted when I leave? That's the key for me at this point in life. That part. Yeah, I think that with age and work comes wisdom. And I think there's so much wisdom in what you just said. I feel like very similarly, I don't think I have been celebrated ever in the way that I have been celebrated by the MOFOs. And the way that I be called back in, no, we're not stepping over that. The way that my voice has been called in to the room, that was very new for me. Yeah. And in a way, sometimes initially when you're not used to it, it can be uncomfortable. When you're used to being tolerated and buttoning up, and there's a hypervigilance that comes with being in spaces where you're tolerated. Yeah. But when you come into that room, one of the things I always loved about us getting together is just there was always an exhale. Yeah. You could just be whoever, wherever, whomever, and that was all. That was what it was. And I think for me, I think especially if we go back 6 years to everything that happened with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, I know for me, it caused me to get to a place of almost tensing up. Right. Yeah. that hypervigilance that you just spoke of. Maybe I only need to be around Black folks, right? But then, real talk, as the saying goes, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Ain't kinfolk, that's right.
And this came up when we were together last year. And it was one of them things that I said, and then I was like, I felt like Will Ferrell in Old School when he blacked out on a debate stage. What did I just say? Everybody's like, that was brilliant, right? But when I made that comment, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but all kinfolk don't have to be skin folk, right?
Yes.
And for me, that's what Mosaic taught me. That's what those taught me, right? Because it's Black, Latino, Asian, and all of us just vibe in our way, collectively and individually. That's the power of community, right? When we can have conversations, and I don't have the lived experience of our Latino brothers and sisters and MOFOs. Shout out to Jenny and Carlos Javier and Maria and Sarita. But when they can share their lived experience and story, it hits me just as hard as if I'm in it with them, right? Yeah. That's the power of finding community and finding your people. And I think that's the celebration part that becomes powerful and important, right? When they can bring all parts of who you are. And our field people have loved talking about for the past 5 years is bring your whole self to work. For a lot of us who are marginalized, that ain't happening.
That isn't, yeah.
Right? Nah, you want me to bring like this part.
Right.
You don't want me to bring this part.
That's right.
You don't want me to bring my neurodiverse part where I'm like, I can't sit still. I need to walk. I need to turn the camera off because it's too much.
That's right.
I can't bring that part. You want me to lock in and just be staring at you like this on Zoom. And so I think that when you find places where you can bring your full self, not have to explain it, not have to excuse it, but just show up, right? And if somebody senses something different, they are caring enough for you to be able to ask questions to understand, not to try to explain away.
That's right.
And I think that can be rare as we get older.
I want to lock in for just a minute on what it feels like when you're celebrated, when you're in a community that you're celebrated, what that looks like. For me, just as an example, I noticed that when I'm in a community where I can bring my whole self, I code switch because I want to, not because I have to. I do it as a skill and for fun, but not because I feel like I have to, right? Yeah. I can unmask. I don't have to be like, feel like Jim Carrey in the mask, like, I can just be where I am. I can get up and walk around if I'm in a group. Yeah. And not have to worry about people like, where are you going? Oh, she's moving around. Oh, she's being disrespectful.
Yeah.
What does that feel like in your body? Or what do you feel like you're able to do when you're in that kind of community?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind, Maiysha, is I don't have to perform. Right. So thinking back to a few weeks ago, I was in the UK. I was facilitating a leadership team meeting and they hit a little bit of a rough patch. So we had taken a break and I connected with the person that had brought me in. And I was like, look, I'm at a little bit of a loss because XYZ just happened. And she was like, why don't you just say that? And so I said it. I said, listen, here's what happened. Here was my response. I'm at a loss. What's really going on here? And everybody kind of paused and was like, I appreciate you saying that. I'm realizing here was my part in it, right? So it's not having to perform, but it's also not having to feel like I got to prove. Like, I got to prove that I earned my spot here. I can be me. I can come in and you know what? I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Okay. Or I don't have to feel like I'm coming in and I always like to joke and say, put on my Case Western lens and start speaking the King's English and these. I can just tell you, like, this ain't working. Or I kind of rock with what you were just saying and people get it, right? So it's not just the code switching, but it's I don't have to waste a lot of time and energy with pretense and with trying to appear to be a certain way. I don't have to be the smartest in the room.
Yes.
All of those things, I can just show up as me. And for me, when I do that, because I'm naturally a very observant person, it actually opens up that other side for me. And one of the things that it opens up that I don't think happens enough for us is I'm able to feel comfortable with, here's what I'm sensing physically, here's where I have comfort or discomfort, and I can call that out as an observation because it's real in the midst of what's happening in that room.
Yeah.
People aren't looking at me like weird. What was that food thing you just did? No, I wasn't. I'm telling you, yeah, when you said that hit me here, and it's unsettling. And then somebody else can be like, I'm unsettled too. I appreciate you calling that out.
One thing came up as you were speaking. One of the other things that I didn't recognize until just now, that when I am in a place where I feel like I'm celebrated, I can actually say no without having to explain myself.
Ooh, no is a whole answer.
It is a whole answer. I can decline and not have to feel like, oh, or counteroffer or anything, unless I want a counteroffer. Right. So that is another piece. Yeah.
That's an important piece, because it's, if I know I'm with people who get me, I can say no, and it's not going to change the relationship at all, because they're in it because of who I am, not what I do or what I bring to the table.
But that sparked when you said, I don't have to prove. Because I think when we feel like we have to prove, we have to say yes to things that maybe we don't want to say yes to, or we haven't thought all the way through, right? Absolutely. It's not an automatic yes. I can say, I don't know. Let me think about it. Right. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's what it brought up for me.
Yeah.
And such a rich conversation. The question I have for you is, for our audience, is, if you had one or two or three things to leave the audience with about this piece of going where you're celebrated, or recognizing where you're celebrated and not just tolerated, what would you leave them with?
I think there's a couple of things. In order to understand being celebrated, you also have to understand what tolerance is. One of the things that I wrote about is that tolerance can be seductive. I think especially for those of us who've been marginalized, I'm not having to go through what my parents had to go through in the 60s and 70s.
Woo.
If I got to do this, but I'm not being called out my name or having rocks thrown at me, then it's okay, right? Or I got a family to take care of, right? I got a kid going into middle school, high school, college, right? And I think that we make up those excuses. So recognizing the things that we're doing that allows tolerance to continue to be seductive, I think that's important. I think when we talk about celebrated, how much of you can really show up, or how much of you is still hidden, right? And I'm not saying that you got to be an open book to everybody, right? But if you're feeling like, I'll just use a common one for sisters. If you're feeling like, I can't wear my hair natural, I can't bring braids into the room, which is what I would prefer to do, right? What are some of the things that are coming up for you as a part of who you are that you feel like you can't bring into the space? And then how do you feel going into and coming out? If you dread Monday, Tuesday morning, you need to start investigating that a little bit. What are some of those things? So just, I really want people to tap into, what are they feeling? What are they sensing? My client's got an Aura ring, and she said, oh, this is telling me all kinds of stuff about how stressed I am during the day. I said, so pay attention to that. Pay attention when you get ready to walk into the room. Does your stress level go up? It does. What's causing that? So I think if we just really slow down long enough to allow our bodies to talk back to us and say, this ain't feeling right. I think that's an important part. And when do I feel settled? We've been talking for 40 minutes and I'm still sitting here. I'm just kicking it with my sister, right? It's good, right? But if I was sitting on here, how much longer? And we only 5 minutes. That's a problem, right? So just paying attention to those kinds of things.
That is so good. And I love you bringing it back to how is our body telling us? This part of the series of this podcast, we've been talking a lot about emotional intelligence. And I'm going to bring into it that somatic intelligence and how
Mhm.
much that plays into, they're very much intertwined.
Yeah.
We have to listen to the body. And I love what you said. In order for us to know what it feels like to be celebrated, we also have to know what it feels like in our bodies to
Mhm.
be tolerated.
Right.
I love that you bring it right around to the body, because
Yeah.
that, I think that's so important
Yeah.
in all of this, is to know
Yeah.
what it feels like to be both. You can distinguish it and
Yeah.
put yourself more where you feel celebrated.
That's important. My friends in East Africa, I was saying, my body betrays me. And I
Mm.
think that what we don't recognize is we're trying to override what our bodies are telling us a lot of time,
Yeah.
when it's actually saying, no, you need to sit down, or
Yeah.
no, you keep coming back to this place, but this ain't the spot for you. Right. And so just realizing that we have things from the neck down trying to speak to us, and we're not just
Yes.
big old brains and heads, is
Yeah.
important.
So my last question is, it's like a multi-part question, is what are you most excited about happening right now? And how can people celebrate that with you? Or I would say more, reach out to you and allow themselves to be gifted by your expertise in whatever way that looks like: coaching, consulting, speaking.
Yeah, appreciate it. One of the things, I was both crazy enough and bold enough to go back to school at 50 and start working on a PhD. And I'm in my all but dissertation stage now. And one of the things that I'm tapping into is, what does burnout look like for Black leaders? There's a lot that we don't realize that we're going through. So that's something that I'm really excited about, is being able to get ready to start tapping into that,
Yeah.
collecting that data, and hopefully providing some insight for those who are climbing various ladders to know this is some of the cost that's coming with that.
Right.
And this is what you can do to protect against that cost, right? That's something that I'm very excited about. In terms of reaching out to me, the beauty of Aaronde Creighton is you ain't gonna find a whole lot. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at my website, which is the number 4th and Hawthorne.com. And that's named for the streets I grew up in. That in Hawthorne Avenue back in Richmond, Virginia. Because the way I like to see it is, what I learned from those communities and from those people are some of the most valuable lessons in life. And so that's why I named my practice 4th and Hawthorne. So between LinkedIn and 4thandhawthorne.com, you can find me there.
Excellent. We will have all of that information in the show notes, y'all. Aaronde, thank you so much for being with me in this conversation. You know, we can keep talking because you and I, we just vibe.
We just click. Absolutely.
Yes, the vibe sultant be vibing, man.
And you'll do some amazing things. I'm excited about this year and more.
Yes, I am excited as well. And we're going to be working together this year. We're going to be working
Absolutely.
together. Yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being with us. And this conversation was rich. I know the audience is going to love it. Speaking of the audience, I always love to thank you, audience, because without you, there is no podcast. I invite you, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, to subscribe to it, because we do have a lot of rich conversations like this on the podcast, and we have a lot of fun, as well as I do some solo stuff too. So you can get a little bit of fresh me.
There you go.
Yes. And also, we appreciate you leaving a comment. If you're listening to us through YouTube, leave us a comment. If you're listening through Apple or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast platform is, leave us a review, because that helps the people that are coming after you know that this is valuable content. And finally, share this, because these are really important conversations. Going where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Come on. People need to know this. So share with a friend, a colleague, a family member, because they need to be able to feel when they're being tolerated versus recognize when they're being celebrated as well. And go check out Aaronde Creighton at 4thandhawthorne.com. It'll be in the show notes. With that, you all, Aaronde, I thank you again for being with us.
Absolutely.
And until the next time we see y'all, stay empowered.
All right. Be blessed.